so they're almost life-size. And because it's news, they're staring into the lens of the camera, reading the auto cue. I feel a little bit intimidated when I'm sat on the sofa first thing in the morning with life-size newsreaders kind of staring at me. You might feel the same, you might feel differently. You might want that a bit smaller in the morning. And so with this control, I mentioned it's called the immersion control, I can bring that back down and change the size of that video to have it really small if I wanted. So I'm in control. We think it really comes down to kind of how you emotionally engage or relate to a piece of content, how big you're going to want it, how immersed you want it to be. And it will depend on other things like what time of day is, the other things that you're doing whilst you're watching TV. What we'll see in a moment as we move into the next segment of the program is this area underneath is going to update. So this area, what's being presented is synchronised to the timeline of the video, again under the control of the broadcaster. Here we've gone to the weather, this part of the show is sponsored, so there's a sponsorship graphic below, and again on that companion app, when I tap on that area, I get a link and I can follow that and go to the sponsors landing page and find out more about their promoted products and services. I'll skip us a little bit further forward into this content. Here we've gone to the travel segment, and we've got some live traffic information here. Of course that can be personalised to me, my location, my commute in the morning. Now everything you're seeing here is being implemented using HTML5. So in fact each of these, both these large screens and the small screen over here driven by the set-top box are web browsers. What we've got is one 5.1 audio system in the room, but in fact we've got 3 different devices which are rendering this experience. Only this device is connected to that audio system. I can move that program over onto this display, and you can hear the audios move around to reflect its physical position in the room. But again, it's only this system that's connected to the audio system, so in fact that content's still running here. We've hidden it. We've fired up another instance over on this browser. We've done some work on the AV pipelines for those browsers so we can keep those 2 videos frame accurately synced. So effectively we're seeing one instance, hearing another. What we didn't want to have to do was for each set of screens that we bring into the room, have to bring another audio system. So let's leave that there. As I was moving things around, you probably saw that as I moved the video around, other things were getting shuffled out of the way. So behind these browsers we have a layout engine, and it's arranging and coordinating the presentation of all this content for us. In some cases making things smaller to make them fit if we keep adding things. We wanted to avoid a system where we had to keep manually resizing everything to make it fit. The system's trying to do that for us. We can watch live TV, so again if we go to that TV menu you'll see just to the right of highlights it says live TV in grey text. So that's it, and if you want to grab one, that's it, tap, and bring a second one up if you like. You can bring a second channel up if you like. It just takes a second to load. So this is live off-air digital satellite, it just takes a couple of seconds to tune. Now we can put a basic visual experience around today's live TV. We have some EPG SI data so we know what we're watching, and we've probably got some subtitles or closed captions beneath. And of course we can have more than one channel. I'm not suggesting we'll always want to watch more than one channel at the same time. I think one of the Back to the Future movies had that. But certainly there are situations where that might be a nice thing to do. Sports, I guess, is an obvious example. More than one football game happening at the same time. Certainly last summer with the Olympics in London, it would have been really nice to keep an eye on more than one event as they played out in parallel. And of course some broadcasters already have interactive apps where they have multiple video streams, and we can unpack those and display those video streams in parallel in this kind of system. Immersion works the same way as before, so if I want to focus on one program, I can bring that immersion level up, and our layout engine again is resizing things and balancing them to make them fit. Let's lose one of those videos and just bring up our immersion. Now this might be a situation that's familiar to you. You might be sat on the sofa of an evening watching TV, very immersed, and you get interrupted. This is my little girl Rosie. Unfortunately she does have a habit of interrupting TV watching, bless her heart. And we've got a wireless baby camera, and it's been brought into the system so that we know that she needs our attention. Now as it happens, I know she's about to be looked after, so I'm going to be a little bit selfish and go back to watching our TV programme. She's moved around to the side here. We can keep an eye, just make sure everything's going to be okay. Fingers crossed. There we are, she's been rescued. That's a relief. The point we're trying to make here is, as well as having broadcast and broadband content in this kind of system, we can have content that originates from within the home, so-called domotic content. Whether it's the baby camera, a security system, a door entry camera. our layout engine can be aware of those inputs and it can prioritise them appropriately. In some cases interrupting our experience as we saw there, in some cases perhaps it wouldn't interrupt our experience if we were very immersed in something. And obviously that's something you'll be able to set up and configure as a user appropriately to the situation. So let's leave that there. What I'd like to do now is show you an example of a piece of content where the content creator or the broadcaster is going to augment their video to take advantage of this extra resource that could be available in the home. So we've got this year's NBA All-Star Basketball game. Let's take a look at that. So this is our HD video as broadcast, and then around it you can see the broadcasters prepared some sort of rich graphics to present information. Here we've got some stats for the two teams for the game, and obviously these would update as the game progresses. Beneath we've got a sponsor for this event, and again on the companion app we can tap on that area and we get an ad. Click through go to the website. On this side we've got our life-size player. Now the layout engine's aware of the physical dimensions and the relative positions of all the displays in the system, and that means it's able to potentially display content at life size or one-to-one. In fact, on the companion app we can tap on our full-size player here and it brings up a little banner application, and I can just drag that and scroll it, and we can drive the presentation of the players that we see, and feel free to have a play. You'll also see for each of these players we've got some promoted items on screen, and within that app we've got links corresponding to those. So we can tap through, go to the NBA store, go buy tickets, buy some trainers. They're just simple examples of how you might be able to monetize, use this extra screen space for promotion and to drive purchasing. Over in the game over here, immersion works the same way as before, so here we're fully immersed in the video, but the broadcaster is sending some immersion triggers alongside the video, so that when there's a break in play, they're going to drop the immersion for us, because this is a more natural time perhaps to be looking at some of this other stuff around the video, because there's less action actually happening in the game. And you'll see in a moment when play resumes, they'll automatically drive that immersion back up. We can opt out of that if we want to, we don't have to have that style of presentation, but it might help us kind of manage when's the right time to take our attention to other parts of this experience. I'll just skip us a little further forward. Again, another break in play. Here we see the presentation around the video is updated and changed, and if you want to, you can just tap on one of the end areas here corresponding to that presentation. It will bring up another app where we can interact with that experience. So here we're comparing the performance of Kobe Bryant and LeBron James in terms of shots. We can tap on team contribution here and drive that experience. Tap on defence, compare their performance in defence. Maybe we'd like to choose a different player. I'll be really quickly to it. Carmelo Anthony instead of LeBron James. We'll switch that back. So again, another example of how we can just use these devices to drive what we see presented on the large screen. I'll just skip us forward one more time, and you'll see we'll lose our full-size players over here at the side. And in a moment what's going to happen is some of our friends who are watching the same game in their homes are going to invite us to join in a kind of virtual shared viewing experience. So there's our invitation and it's popped up. Thank you for pressing the join button. So here we try to virtually extend our couch so it feels like we're watching with our friends. Hopefully you get the idea. And we know, anecdotally, that quite a few people today will fire up a video chat on their personal devices while they're watching TV. But obviously when you're doing that, your kind of attention is a bit split between this device and the TV that you're watching. So we wanted to kind of explore what we could do in a kind of a more ambient kind of experience where it felt like people were in the room with us. And I should also say, with that NBA example, we only got hold of the content after that game had gone to air. So all of the graphics that you saw that we prepared were all using assets that were part of the existing broadcaster's workflow in terms of images from press kits, from their web and mobile productions. There was no special production done to produce that kind of experience. Okay, let's turn our attention to the evening. Perhaps think about a family wanting to watch a movie, and we were thinking about how we might support that kind of thing in this environment. And we thought a nice way of doing that would be if our content provider were able to make available a series of high-resolution movie posters for all of the items they have in their on-demand offering. And you know, some of these movie posters are quite beautiful in their own right. Often they're a sort of composite of the themes of a piece of content, and they say quite a lot about it. So we're going to watch this movie, Sintel, so we'll just click through to that movie collection and launch the movie. But of course, before the movie starts, we're going to watch a trailer.
I want to leave this house.
It's not the house that's haunted. It's your son.
You'll notice there our video is irregularly shaped because we're not having to fill a rectangular frame. So we brought the background into the display. We can have arbitrarily shaped assets being laid out in the system. So this is our movie, and this is in 4K resolution. This with the HD we've been looking at previously, you can see the benefit of the extra resolution here. But just because the movie's in 4K, we don't have to watch it large. We can bring down that immersion level. We could, bring it down to a really small size if that's what we wanted. I'll just bring it back up again. Here you'll see we've got some space for subtitles now, and the next scene there's some dialogue, and you'll see those light up. All through this presentation, we've tried to avoid compositing graphics over the video, because we've got a more flexible presentation model. We can resize to make things fit and always keep the video kind of clean and uncluttered. Here are our subtitles, and in fact, again on the companion app, if I just tap on those subtitles, I can make them appear on here if I want to. We'll bring that immersion down, bring the lights back up, and reintroduce some of those ambient items we had at the beginning, maybe the family photos, some news headlines. And you can see we can very quickly go from a kind of immersive home theatre style of presentation to something that's more realistic of how we might watch in a day, with a mixture of a movie, information, personal content, all being managed for us by this layout engine. And we try to make that flexible so that it can respond to people's changing needs for immersion, entertainment, and information as they go about their daily lives. I said earlier we had a set-top box participating in the ecosystem, and of course we can drag some of this content so it appears on that screen. And again, since you're running a Qt WebKit web browser, and because we're using HTML5 and standard web technology, you can participate in this system as well. So that concludes the presentation. I hope you found it interesting and exciting. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.